I'm sitting here brushing my teeth. These guys are answering questions that are so simple for me, it's unreal. Let me answer their questions since they're so simple. I'm gonna keep brushing my teeth, and let me play what they said, and then I'll answer the questions. But they're so simple, very simple questions.
From Los Angeles to Denver, and I'm looking around the plane, and there's all these people sitting on the plane, and it just dawns on me, and I do this a lot. Every one of them is an individual. They've got their own little situation, their problems, their happiness, their families, every one of them. But the question I kept asking myself as I looked at this entire plane full of people, why? What's the reason? What are they here for? Some had briefcases, some had purses, some had tablets. Who are they? What are they?
These questions are so simple. I mean, they're so simple. First of all, why are they there? That's so simple. There's a DNA that drives everyone. Like, you ever hear the saying, he that cometh with a word cometh with an agenda? Everyone's driven by a belief system. And what is a belief system? It's nothing but a word. It's a word that believes this will make you happy. It's a word that believes that if I do this, I'll be fulfilled. Jesus would say to people, and I got it on my wall right here. You know, when the guy came by night, one of the scribes and Pharisees, he said, let me open up this a little bit. He said to him, "What seek ye?" So he had that on his. Jesus said to them, "What seek ye?" See, everybody's seeking something, and that's a belief system, a spiritual DNA. Let me see if I can get this back small again. It's giving me a hard time here. There we go. A spiritual DNA. A spiritual DNA basically. Oh man, this is really getting on my nerves. Let me just pull it off the side here. Okay. It's programming. You know, you grow up with certain values that your parent instills into you, or you say, or your parents put certain black holes or voids in your soul. So then you try to fill those voids, but it's basically a belief system that you think if you get this thing that it'll make you happy. Well, that's all it is. That's why those people are there. They're there for a specific DNA reason. So I was going to write a book about spiritual DNA. I never wrote it. I recorded about 10,000 hours of stuff. And basically Solomon sums things up very precisely. I was going to write a book about this. Solomon says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is it. Your heart is a place where you believe certain things. Now, it doesn't mean that those things are true. It just means you believe that, right? Like, you can be a dog running around a racetrack after a carrot, or a fake rabbit, but it's not really a real rabbit. It's a fake rabbit. But the dog just knows that it moves like a rabbit, and he chases it like a rabbit, but he's not going to catch it. But we do all kinds of stupid things. Like Einstein said, to keep doing the same behavior over and over is insanity. And that's what most humans do. They repeat the same behavior over and over. And a lot of things, the behaviors that people do, they do it for the feeling of power, but it's not really power. But it makes them feel powerful. But in all actuality, following a specific DNA, a specific thought, like for example, what I have on my wall right here, this is how real power is. This is how real power works. Real power says, oh crap, you can't see it. This is how real power works. Oh, this is getting on my nerves. Real power works this way. We focus on what we want, then we accomplish what we want. So the power is just like this other thing on my wall over here. It says, what's competing for your attention? There, oh, this lower one. What's competing for your attention? And that's what's going to control you. Because that's what you believe is going to make you happy. And that's what you're going to do. Then that falls into this category of what I have on the wall here. Stupid is what stupid does. We do a lot of things that we don't realize just how stupid they are, but that's what you do. But I don't want to get too deep on this. Let me answer some other questions. But it's basically a spiritual DNA that was created by your childhood, which was your programming before you, just like you learned your language. And I've never read any books in my life. I probably read maybe 100 books in my life, because I had attention deficit disorder all my life, and my quest was to figure out how the mind works so that I could have more control over my mind. But I don't want to get into all those secrets and how all that works. But let me answer some other questions here. But I kind of generally answer that one. I don't want to get too deep in everything. I don't got time for that.
I still can't get that answer. You, of course, have brought up a series of 6 questions in one of our previous shows that asks those questions too. But will we ever get that answer? Why are we here?
Yeah, that's a very simple question. Why are we here? Well, God created this dimension of space and time, right? And it's just a testing ground. He created the first heaven, because it says in the Bible that God's going to create a new heaven and a new earth. Now, the first heaven was created to test the angels, and we see that 1/3 of them fail. Now, the first earth was created to test man. And we're here being born and tested. It's like and you've heard of, people going to hell and people going to heaven. And you've heard in the Bible something called the second death. So basically, God is looking for sons and daughters. Now, if you're a son and daughter of Satan, like he said to the scribes and Pharisees, he said, thou art your father, the devil. They thought their father was Abraham, but the spiritual DNA that they carried with them crucified the very Son of God. Now, they wouldn't have crucified him if Jesus, who said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. So we're all being tested here. Everything is a testing to see what we'll do. And most of the things we do, we create by speaking. Like, for example, the press right now. The press right now speaks. And it wants to be the president. It wants to be leading the country. It wants to control the president like a puppet. It wants to pull the strings. And it wants to label and brand the president, so that people see them through their eyes, a spiritual DNA that they want to label him and make the president look a certain way, and they want you to look at the president and believe he is that person. But that's kind of the president's fault for not sitting down and revealing his true self to everyone. I mean, he could do that. So that people actually know who he is, not what the media says he is, right? But we speak and we judge. And it's a spiritual DNA. Either, my favorite definition is the definition of wisdom. Wisdom is the power to judge and make the soundest judgment based on three things: knowledge, experience, and understanding. Now, judging is what we got in Genesis, when they downloaded into themselves and got an instant download of the knowledge of good and evil. All of a sudden they had complete revelation of knowledge of good and evil, instant download. And then now we judge everything, we judge ourselves, we judge everybody and everything, and we've made ourselves miserable. We shame others, we glorify others that shouldn't be glorified. The police officers get treated like garbage, and the athletes who get the glory that the police officers should have and the pay that a police officer has, then condemns a police officer who's dying. A police officer dies 15 times more likely from a black man than a black man is going to be killed by a police officer. So we got these people judging who the pay should go to: the police officer or the firefighter or even the nurse or the doctor or the medical worker. But instead we pay these people who we value, that play sports or are actors and not even real people. We reward them with this high rate of pay. Just like they made Buddha a god who was just a man who mastered the mind, in which God said in Genesis, you must master the sin in you. So Buddha mastered this thing called sin in us, which all it is a lie, and which forms from either pride or low self-esteem. So he mastered that and kept himself on solid ground, solid thinking. And they made a god out of him. Just like we made gods out of Elvises and Marilyn Monroes and actors who act and follow a script, which is a DNA. We've made gods out of these type of people, and then they became our judges. Because they have fame and people listen to them for whatever reason. Then we persecute the police officer who 1,000 times was treated by a man, whether black or white, that didn't fear the law and did not respect the law, and treated them evil 1,000 times. And finally a police officer gets frustrated, puts his knee on a man, and the man dies because he's trying to control the man, but it's the behavior he experienced 1,000 times, and he became tired of it. He became weary of dealing with people that are fearless, that have no respect for the law, no respect for authority. And finally they become numb, dealing with people that act like animals. And then finally they start to treat them like animals, which because they're human. then that man is judged by an athlete that gets the pay that the police officer should be getting. And that's all people talk about is football. That's all I see. I see every man talking about football. Because it's their, it was their dream that they wanted to do. They wanted to be that football player. They wanted that glory. So now, instead of getting that glory, they sit there and they talk about the football. Since they couldn't get the glory, they want to feel like they're the intellectual superior over the athlete that has the athletic ability but doesn't have a brain. So to get the glory, then they talk about the football and act like they're experts on the football. And then they feel superior than the athletes that's getting all the money, and it makes them feel good about their own self. So why are we here? Why are we here? We're here to be tested, because God's going to create a new heaven and a new earth, and nobody that is not supposed to have power based on what they do on this earth will have power to disrupt anything ever. That means those that receive the truth will have power. Jesus walked perfect, and it says all power was given to him in heaven and earth, because he walked perfect in this world, did not sin, did not turn to evil. So then we're here, and we're going to be lined up in power based on what we do on this earth. It says every idle word that you speak, you'll be held in account in judgment. You'll be judged by it. In the judgment then you will receive power based on how you responded here on earth. You were tested in this short time that you were here instead of being born in heaven. So the angels were tested and we're tested, and that's why we're here. We're here to find the truth. And Jesus said this, greater love than a man have than he lay his life down for his friends. You don't see that in the Christian church nowadays. I went through a hard time, I fell into sin, and I found out that Satan has legal right to kill, steal, and destroy in your life whenever a nation or a person sins. Like the children of Israel. Satan took one of their daughters and slept with him, and the prince of the land, of the sons of Jacob, and daughters of Jacob, and they got angry and they murdered this whole tribe. Then famine came in the land. They became slaves for 400 years for their crimes of murdering these people, when there was only one man that slept with their daughter. But they went crazy in their self-righteousness and murdered this whole tribe of people. So they spent 400 years in Egypt, but they had the promise of God. And God, who promised to Abraham, who was a good man, kept his word and delivered them back into their homeland that he promised Abraham. So then they murdered his son, but true to his word, after they said, may his blood be on our hands, true to his word, Israel came back to their nation. Because God keeps his word. He's not a liar. Now, did Satan have legal right for a certain period and season over them? Yes. And that's how the world works. God says, God is not mocked, for whatever a man sows, he shall reap. And a lot of people that don't believe in Christianity call it karma. But it's not karma, it's God. Which vengeance is the Lord. That's how he carries out his vengeance. Whatever a man sows, he'll reap. Now, you might not reap it all on this earth. Some will reap, in the next life. But Jesus even showed through the secrets in kind of a sneaky way, because he hides things. And he admitted to speaking of them in parables and hiding things. He said the rich man came to him, and Jesus pointed out very sneakily that the guy kept all the commandments from his youth, and that's why he was rich. Because you reap what you sow. The Bible says, "Be not weary in due season. Be not weary in well doing, for in due season you shall reap whatever you sow." So our job here on earth is really to find the truth. I personally have heard the audible voice of God twice, and I personally lived in sin for quite a few years, and I didn't know that Satan had legal right to kill, steal, and destroy. But God's a just God. If you sin, you've got a legal right to kill, steal, and destroy in your life. Because God's a just God. And Satan never got forgiveness of sins because he had all revelation. But man, being the children of God, didn't have that revelation. Most of the faith comes by hearing. Using your mind and having common sense. But God does do very many revelations. He says, "If you keep my commandments, I will manifest myself to you." And he does. I've seen Jesus in a vision. I've heard his audible voice twice. He's manifested himself to me in many ways. I've heard angels speak to me. If you really want to know what's going down among a lot of Christians, I've had many experiences, go to Sidrothcom. Take your mouse, click on television. And you can view over 22 years of interviews of people that has had encounters with God. And I've had many of the same encounters that they have, and I do not know these people. So we're basically here to be tested, to see what we're going to do, to see if we'll love, because I was talking about God as a four-letter word in one of the videos, and love is a thing of what God is. So anyway, even the word true is a four-letter word, True. Love is a four-letter word. But Paul says, you thought when he became a man, he stopped thinking like a child. A lot of us, including myself, our thoughts are very childish. We got to rise above our thoughts. We got to be aware of our own thoughts. We got to be sober and aware of our thoughts, and aware that God can hear them. God heard Rebecca's thought when she laughed at the angel when the angel said that she'd have a child. She thought that was ridiculously funny. Thought that's ridiculous. But then the angels who could hear her thoughts pointed it out and said, "Why did you laugh?" And then she lied because she didn't know that they could hear her thoughts. Well, Jesus showed time and time again he could hear people's thoughts. He knew what they were thinking. And God knows what you think, so you can't hide. Genesis, they went and they hid after they were uncovered. But God knows your thoughts. You're not hiding anything from him. You can hide it from men, but not God. So it's time to become honest, One time when I was preaching, in a tape recorder, and I've never preached a sermon other than maybe stuff on here on YouTube more recently, but I hit on the word honesty. When I hit on the word honesty, I felt gravity disappear, and I thought I was going to float up and go through the ceiling or hit the ceiling, because gravity totally disappeared, and it scared me half to death. And I immediately quit preaching, and the word was honesty. There's something about honesty that produces a thing called freedom in people. You got to become honest. I see so many people lying, and it makes me so sick. I used to hate the Republicans. I'd watch The View, and I'd watch, I forget the girl's name, the blonde chick that was on there, and you could just see she would lie for the Republicans, and I just hated it. Now I see the Democrats just lying like dogs and just chasing power, and will believe a lie in a second if it destroys Donald Trump. Who, well, I better not say anything on that one. But I'm so sick of everyone lying to themselves, you know. But that's the DNA that we picked up in Genesis. Satan created the first lie. And a lie is a powerful thing. If you think about it, just one lie that a white man equal to a black man caused all the devastation, from the lynchings to all the whippings of black men to everything you've ever seen, to the Civil War and all those people dying, to everything that's happened to this day, to all the animosity between black and white and the mistrust and everything that has happened, all came from one lie. That a black man's not equal to a white man. But if you really want to know the truth, no man becomes a slave. Israel became a slave because they sinned. If you go back in Africa history, you'll see that these people made blood. If you go to on Sidrothcom and click on TV and type in a person called Jennifer Toledo, you'll find out that these people made blood sacrifices and blood covenants to Satan for thousands of years. So people don't become slaves by no reason. Israel didn't end up 400 years in slavery for no reason. Satan has legal right based on the things you do. So no man can say, God said to Joshua, who took Canaan land, who took the promised land, he said, if you meditate on my word night and day, then you'll be successful, because you'll reap what you sow. If you meditate on God's word, you'll do God's law, and God can't curse you. Just like the rich man that came to Jesus, he said, I kept the law from my youth, and he was rich. So anyway, let's see if I can answer any other questions.
I think we will have the answer, George. The question is, will we be willing to accept what the answer says to us?
Is it frightening?
I don't think it's frightening. We've asked science to tell us who we are.
And they don't tell us.
Well, science, pure science, is now revealing the information. It's not being accepted in the mainstream. So the textbooks in the classrooms are not accepting what the science is telling us.
What is it telling us?
For example, evolution. We'll just take evolution because that's on a lot of people's minds right now. In a public classroom, a teacher can only teach the curricula that's been approved by a school board.
Right.
All right. The school
you
board
can't deviate from that.
If the school board does not accept, even though it's peer-reviewed science, if the school board does not accept that, it cannot be taught. So we're teaching our young people. Or
that teacher gets fired.
Or the teacher gets fired. Yeah. We're teaching our young people the story of separation that has led to so many of the crises that we're seeing. It makes us feel separate from ourselves, from one another. And I've asked professors and friends of mine, I said, why can't you share this in the classroom? Why can't you share the science?
And they're petrified to share this, aren't they?
Before money, ego, power, and habit.
Yeah.
And one of the professors, he said, do you know, as a male, he said, do you know what that would mean to my 40-year career if I had to stand in front of a classroom and say everything I've taught until this point is no longer true? So to him, it would say he was a failure. What I said to him, I said it would be a beautiful demonstration of the power of science and your ability to constantly update what science is telling us about our world. He said, do you know how much money it would cost to change the textbooks? And I said, well, look how much money we spend on the war, so, why not? Habit. He said, it is a habit to teach this. Now, it is changing, and it's changing slowly, George. And this is only one place. Evolution is only one place, but it's the place that's directly relevant to the God covenant.
But will we get that answer, Greg? Why are we here?
I think we will find the evidence of the circumstances, the actual reason I think, is something that we have to find for ourselves. I think we're...
The other reason we're here is to choose the image that we want to become. Most people don't know that you're born of a word. And what does a word do? Solomon says, a man thinks in his heart, so is he. That means you're born of a word. Now, if I accept a lie into me, then I'll be born of that lie, and I'll give birth to that lie. Did you see how that if they propagated a lie? They didn't want to propagate the truth because it brought shame, it brought failure, it made them look like they were a phony. So they continued the lie and to propagate that lie and to spread that lie instead of growing. So our goal in life is to grow. Like Abraham Lincoln first was first for the black man, but more somewhat for political reasons, because it was a good political thing to jump on. But then as you see him, as God controls the truth and deliberately frees the black man, you see him accepting the message and the program laid down by God, that was God's plan. And he couldn't win the war without freeing the slaves. So he grew into the image based on the truth. And it was hard. It was hard. It was a hard thing to do. But he had to accept the truth, and he did. So honesty is a representation of maturity. Someone that's willing to be honest, even if it makes them. What was that movie? I forget the movie, but a police officer in the movie was made basically on a lie for breaking a certain crime. I think it was L.A. Confidential. But his career was made on a lie. He got all this fame from a lie. And he was really willing to tear down that lie and destroy his fame. And even Jesus was tempted with fame, but he rejected it. But a lot of anyway, I gotta go to bed.